recording. Uh, I want to thank everyone who's watching or listening. Right now, we're trying to do my first ever video podcast, and I have a friend here who's willing to be a guinea pig. Former state senator Will Espero. He is a longtime politician, and he is an author of a new book, which we're going to talk about, called Passion in Paradise. So I want to pass it over to you, Senator, if you can just give a little background about yourself.
Aloha, James, and thanks for having me today. Yes, I retired from the legislature in 2018 as a state senator. I served 19 years in the legislature, as well as worked 8 years with former Mayor Frank Fosse in his administration. He hired me when I was 26 years old, and I was in charge of Oahu's neighborhood board system. Something you're really familiar with. Downtown is quite an active board. And yeah, I ran that for 8 years, and I was fortunate to be appointed by Governor Cayetano for state rep because my representative had stepped down to join the private sector.
Oh, fancy.
So moving fast forward to 2018, I had completed a book, a novel, just the manuscript, but I had just let it sit for some time. So finally now, with this COVID and all and being restricted and being home, I decided just to finalize and finish the book. So I'm very proud to say my first novel is done. People can go to Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and other book buying platforms to purchase it. And I'll be, we could talk about it down the road this month, as well as first Friday in March. I'll be having in-person book signings downtown. One at Art at Mark's Garage, the first one February 19, and the second one March 4th will be at the Downtown Arts Center.
Awesome. Are you excited?
Yes, I am.
Are you nervous?
Yes, to a degree. I mean, I'm very happy and proud of the book. It is my first one. But I know I'll improve and get better, and hopefully this is something I could now do as a retired politician and citizen of Hawaii, and write about what's going on here. It's the stories are fiction, of course,
Right.
but FYI, I'm sort of wearing my economic development hat still. In as a legislator, you want you want a good economy, create jobs. And I'm hoping that maybe someone might read my book and say, "Hey, this might be a great television series."
Yeah.
Because there's so many new platforms out there now, compared to, let's say, 10 years, 20 years, even 30 years ago. And Hawaii, this is a great opportunity for our state to, especially in the post-COVID time, to build in the culture and arts, and in particular the film industry. I mean, just in the last few years, all these new platforms from, Netflix, Hulu,
Yeah.
Prime, Disney Plus. There's so many. Spectrum. I don't know if I said that already, and they're looking for content. I mean, this is a $1 billion worldwide global network and opportunity in filmmaking, because you could put things in all the languages nowadays.
Yeah.
And why shouldn't Hawaii be a place where filmmakers and actors and actresses thrive? And we are. Over the years, we've had so many shows. But if I'm correct, I think the economy, the economic value of the film industry is probably, I'll say, between 300 and 500 million dollars. And I've spoken with some people who say, why couldn't that be a $1 billion industry?
Yeah.
Yeah. And in the legislature, as you know, we've supported the new UH West Oahu with a brand new film school. It's run by Chris Lee, former Hollywood executive.
Oh, wow.
And he's doing a great job there, pumping out local educated filmmakers going through the university system, and hopefully many will go through there and create. And if we could get a film studio built, a new one.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, because just doing the like the background work on the TV shows Magnum PI, NCIS, there's so many people, there's so many jobs, and they're all like really good paying jobs for the most part.
Right.
I know Teamsters is one of the unions. I don't know. There's another union that I forget the name of it, but just the amount of people that are working on like one production is kind of, it's
Right.
fascinating. That's why I like doing it. I like just kind of seeing what's going on in the background.
SAG is obviously one of the main
Yeah,
unions there for the
yeah,
actors. Yeah.
yeah. And it's fascinating to see how it all comes together. But it's also, I've become a real proponent now of, like you were saying, like the film studio, because I think we're missing an opportunity here. It's kind of like in Hawaii, as a former legislator, we kind of are always in the back of the train instead of in front of the train.
Well, part of the problem though is that it's such a competitive business,
Mm-hmm.
and filming in Hawaii is a little more expensive than other places. Other towns and countries know the value of the film industry, and how even it ties to tourism, because films, television shows can promote any location and place.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
yes, this is something where you're not only talking about the actors and the cameramen and the editors, but you're talking about catering businesses,
Mm-hmm.
flowering businesses, people that support the film industry, makeup, hair. There's so many, and with COVID, where if we could shoot more outdoors and people are
Mm-hmm.
outdoors, obviously that's better than being indoors. So
Yeah.
yes, I'm hoping that it's a long shot, but maybe someone might say, "Hey, yeah, maybe we could do a political drama." One of my favorite shows was West Wing, from
Yeah.
long ago,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
And then obviously the more recent one, the political show that
Is it House of
the
Cards?
House of Cards,
Yeah.
right?
That
That
was.
was a classic. And so I'd like to hope that maybe my book can turn into something like that. So the character development and the plots are real important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. But you said, you were saying earlier that you kind of wrote the book with a TV kind of mindset.
Yes, so that someone reading it will say, "Hey, this would look great on television."
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have good characters, good plots, and
Yeah.
I hope I delivered.
And I
Yeah.
think that's a really good way to do it, because people love watching TV, right?
Right.
So I think when they're reading the book, if you wrote it to be like a TV show in a sense, it's kind of giving more to the imagination for them, and more, I guess, more information that they can use to visualize what's happening.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting. But one of the reasons that I have always liked you, though, was you are one of the, I guess, one of the only lawmakers who was ever stood up for police reform and caught a lot of flack about it. Like every session. Um, what was your motivation for going after police reform, and what type of reform were you going after, and did you succeed? Do you feel like you succeeded?
Oh, I believe I did succeed, and I would say the majority of the people I've dealt with, or even individuals who talked with me, supported me. So when you said there was flack, I think there's just controversy.
Hmm.
And I'm one, obviously, for transparency and openness in government. So, um, for example, one of my bills was the creation of what we have today, a statewide independent review board when there's police shootings,
Hmm.
right? Now, the police, some of them don't like that because they don't want an independent review. They believe that their in house system was fine. But we in the legislature thought otherwise and passed this. So you can see that that doesn't harm a police officer
Right.
unless you're a bad police
Yeah.
officer.
Yeah.
And let me say that I support our men and women in blue. I believe the majority of the residents do,
Hmm.
but we demand accountability,
Hmm.
and we want responsible police officers, because theirs is the only position where someone can say stop, and you can just, if for just about everyone else, you can just ignore them and walk away in public.
Hmm.
But if a police officer says stop, you generally have to stop because of the badge and the power and authority that they have. But sometimes, some of their decisions, as we've seen on the news, have been questionable and suspect. And that's where, we need good training. We need strong supervision and monitoring of these individuals. And we need a good review of their performance.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just looking at improving the police department. For example, and I'll say one thing with Chief K. Aloha when he was in office. I approached him. I introduced legislation that said officers couldn't drink alcohol and carry their gun because they could.
Prior, this blows my mind. Like that's kind of like common sense. You don't
right, and it was the judgment of the officer in most cases, right?
Oh,
but there were incidences that had led to shootings where officers were involved, and one very publicized one was on the King Street shooting where a waitress or bartender was shot by a police officer who was showing off his gun.
Oh wow! I didn't know about that.
Oh yeah, I have the newspaper articles, but it's basic improvement of departments, and as lawmakers, it's our job to make sure all departments and agencies are doing well. And like you said, but most people like to believe that the police are the good guys, and they are. But there are a few bad apples in there, and those are the guys that I'm trying to weed out and get out.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, their decisions can be life and death, and or you have a police officer who has anger issues or who's considered a hothead. That can be problems.
Yeah.
Thus, you see, the rise of the Black Lives Matter and cases on the news that are being publicized now that cell phones are available.
Yep.
Much more is available to the public to see and hear. So, yeah, I'm just talking about improvements in state government all around, and the police and law enforcement are a part of that state government. And by the way, did you know that to be a police officer, all you need is a GED?
Yeah, actually, I've taken the HPD exam 3 or 4 times, and I've started going through the process. But because I was military police for 8 years in the Army, so I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of a natural transition. But just the history of the department and the culture within, I just in my stomach and my gut, I just always stopped. I would always say, okay, you know what, I don't want to do it. And then later on, I would have a change of heart, like, you know what, why not? But because I used to work alongside HPD as an MP, and then I used to train with their SSD because I was on the Army's like SRT, which is like Special Reaction Team. It's kind of our version of a SWAT team for garrison posts.
Mm-hmm.
And those guys were awesome. So that was always my goal, like to join HPD, do whatever I had to do, but then try out for the SSD. I thought that would be awesome. But yeah, something I think even recently as of 2019, 2019, I took the evaluation, the fitness test, everything up to the psychological exam, and I was just like, you know what, I still just don't feel comfortable, and I think that's kind of sad because it's probably not just me, right? But like you were saying, when you're recruiting, I guess it's a double-edged sword, as you know. You're recruiting people with just a GED or a high school diploma, but they haven't been really tested in any other type of market, like researching things in college or in a business, managing, operating. Probably haven't been around a lot of people because you're taking like these people fresh out of high school,
right?
They've been out maybe 1 or 2 years, and then they could just be a cop, but they don't have a well-rounded experience, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Right. No. The life experiences.
But how do you recruit for a job that even I don't think the standards were always that low, were they? But they lowered it to recruit people. But now you can't even.
No, I believe they've always been that low.
Interesting.
And I mean, and to be fair, many of the officers, have done some, community college, or some have degrees, and some of them are transitioning from the military, like you said. But again, that is the standard, though, just a GED.
That's crazy to me.
and but like other jobs in government and even in the private sector today, we have a labor shortage.
Right.
You hear about Japan and how their population of elderly is growing, and we're not as bad as them, but they're going to have to start importing massive employees one day and
Yeah.
labor to take care of the Japanese economy.
Or robots.
Or robots. No, and
Yeah.
robots are going to be the next big
Yeah.
controversial society change. You'll see, James, and it's going to happen soon.
It's going to be it's happening quick as it is.
Well, it's happening now. Like you go into any McDonald's, for example, or Walmart, and you see no cashiers. But no, I think there's going to be some ethical issues, some moral issues on what these AI intelligent units do, and or what these beings,
Yeah.
look like and do. And
But
stay tuned.
It's interesting though that you brought up the labor shortage because of COVID, because I think one of the reasons, there's a lot of reasons obviously, but one of the reasons is kind of people like yourself. Now you didn't retire because of COVID, right? But you
No.
you
Yeah.
retired just to
This
kind
is
of
a couple years
pursue
before.
other things.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think a lot of people realized during COVID, like, they had more time to self-reflect, and they just decided like, this isn't, I want to pursue what I want to pursue. I want to do what makes me happy, even if it doesn't make a lot of money. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of the labor shortages, because like for me, okay, so I work for the state. I work at the food stamp office. We don't get paid much, but man, the things that we have to deal with, the types of people that we have to deal with, when I look back, it just kind of blows my mind to think like, wow, like I really used to do that, because we used to see people in person, but now we don't. They're supposed to start opening up the offices again, but a lot of people are already talking about retiring or leaving, because it's kind of like those types of jobs or service industry jobs that are having a lot of the problems. Like when you go to work, the customer's always right. And no matter what you do, you're wrong, and you get scolded, you get in trouble for things. And I think a lot of people are just tired of that. Like, especially if you're like a bartender or a waiter, and a client or a customer wants to be rude, and you're human, you can only take so much, but then your manager scolds you, or you get in trouble, but because the customer's always right. But the customer's not always right. Customer could be a Karen, right? But
Exactly.
I think that's kind of why we see like the labor shortage, but also I see it as it's helping the transition, like you were saying, that was going to happen. Instead of it being like 20 years, maybe now it's down to like 5.
Right.
Because now a lot of companies are saying, well, I can't get cashiers at McDonald's, so we need to expedite the touch screens and things like that.
Well, plus, it's interesting how at the legislature today, now, they're talking about raising the minimum wage to eventually $18, which is again that the impact on small businesses and our economy is going to be significant. But this is the transition that we as humanity and society have to go. I mean, we have to find that point, and this is really important, because Hawaii is turning into a state of haves and have-nots.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for people who own real estate in Hawaii, you're going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
The real estate market here for the last 50, 60, 70 years has been explosive on an upward trend, as we all know. Real estate is a solid investment in Hawaii, and now the median price of a home is $1 million, and many local people are just being priced out of owning a home and moving away. And I just talking to some friends the other day and saying that this is how it's going to be for a long time, because right now, as one who's was in office for 19 years, I don't see how anyone's going to come up with a plan to come up with the shortage of houses, let's say within the 10 years. And, we lack land, we lack labor, as we said, and now, and the price of goods and services are going up.
Can we talk about the housing for a second? Just
And I do talk about housing in my book, by the way, Passion of Paradise.
Yeah.
I mention and incorporate 3 issues into my novel: the legalization and decriminalization, legalization of cannabis, decriminalization and legalization of prostitution, and ending homelessness. So those issues are thrown around in some chapters and by some characters in certain settings. Again,
Yeah.
just to let people know that these are real issues that are still out there, and to reflect on what their opinion is. Personally, I think cannabis can be a major boost for our economy and savior for many blue collar and low income families. If every household had an opportunity to to grow cannabis and sell it, that's an easy source of part-time income now, where a household can make hundreds of dollars and maybe thousands of dollars. This is a plant that never should have been banned
Yeah.
in the 1930s and 40s. It was banned purely for economic greed. The millionaires and billionaires of that time wanted to destroy the cannabis hemp industry,
Hmm.
and they did.
Yeah.
They destroyed it, they shut it down, and they profited. For example, William Hearst, he was one of the collaborators. He owned all the forest
Yeah.
and paper, and paper and forest competed against hemp. The Declaration of Independence was written on hemp. Okay, and DuPont, their family, they were part of this because DuPont at that time, they were working on polyesters and artificial
Yeah.
type material. And what did they want to get rid of? Hemp. Because what was hemp being used for? Sails,
Hmm.
clothing, pants. Hemp was used throughout our history. The colonies, one of their early requirements was to grow hemp, and it was an export crop sent back to Europe.
Hmm.
But Henry Ford, listen to this, wanted to build a car made out of hemp.
We could smoke it.
There's a thing now called hemp plastic, which is super strong.
Yeah.
He wanted to build it out of hemp and run it on hemp fuel.
That would be awesome.
See, and again, one of the collaborators back then was with the oil companies. Okay, and thus there were so many. So there were lies made up. The issue of racism came up. They were
Mhm.
saying that the marijuana was a tool of the blacks
Yeah.
and the Mexicans and Filipinos, and they're gonna go crazy and get the white women, and all these lies and racist remarks that were put in where the newspapers
Yeah.
owned by William Hearst.
Yeah. Interesting.
So
eh?
so banning cannabis was based on a lie, a huge lie.
But isn't it like a lot of things are like that? So one of the most recent things, I don't know if you ever listened to the Joe Rogan podcast, but there has been uproar.
I don't listen to Joe Rogan.
but the media has basically he gets 11 million viewers average, whereas CNN is down to like 900,000 or something. So they've lost 90% of their viewership. And what they've done is they've done exactly that. They're attacking the competition in a sense of trying to discredit them and make them look bad. And again, they're calling them racist. And
Well,
but if you actually listen to the show, it's he has people on who might be controversial, but he doesn't necessarily sit and agree with them. He'll argue with them, but he just has different people on who have different. It's kind of like the goal of this, right? Just whoever I think is interesting, come on. I might not agree at all with what you have to say, but at least now more people know how you think, how you feel. So, but
and today, so getting back, over 30 states have passed medical cannabis bills. Over 30. So the trend is obviously moving forward. And 18 states plus the District of Columbia allow legalized cannabis for adult use. So the trend, we're not yet at 50, but it's going upward.
Mm.
This is one of the big issues of our time right now, cannabis. Although it may not be on President Biden's mind, for example, but obviously what it has turned into, where it is legal, it's a billion-dollar industry, a multi-billion-dollar industry, and many states have looked at it to raise money. So the question to the listeners out there is, would you rather see more taxes on food or alcohol or drinks or fuel, or more income tax, property tax, or can we tax cannabis and legalize it the way we tax alcohol and cigarettes, which many people believe are worse than cannabis?
Mm-hmm.
See, the problem with cannabis was that it was good for society. It was beneficial. And by the way, part of the collaborators back then too were the Rockefellers, because they wanted to create a centralized corporate health system. Whereas cannabis was a plant that many people were using and healing themselves. So, you can't patent a plant.
Yeah,
but this is the
that's
argument
exactly
about
it.
the pharmacy industry and all. So, it's going to be up to Congress and the president to figure out a plan nationally, and then lacking that, the states are doing it on their own. And mind you, James, Canada has legalized. Mexico,
Which is
Mexico, the Supreme Court has told the lawmakers, you must legalize it. It's unconstitutional to ban it. So Mexico will be legalizing soon. And the United States is. So eventually I see Canada, United States, and Mexico creating the largest cannabis industry in the world. And then hopefully other countries will come in, especially those in Europe. But yes, I do talk about it a little in my book.
how does it, so I guess I'm assuming you took your experiences from your years in politics and things that you've done, seen, and heard, morph them into your story. Yeah. So kind of like, how does the marijuana tie into your passion in paradise? Let's see if we can get up for
Okay.
It's backwards, I think, but
Well, for starters, I have a couple patients who are medical cannabis patient. Couple characters who are medical cannabis patients.
I was like, wait, is it a doctor?
So I have a couple patients who are medical cannabis, and because it's the legislature, right, that's involved in politics and lawmakers, I do have one of my characters is a strong advocate for legalizing cannabis. So that's where that discussion comes in on legalizing cannabis, and yeah, he has support from lawmakers as well. Representative Kistler, one of my characters, she's a a liberal lawmaker who state representative who's the point for the legalization of cannabis and regulation of prostitution.
Oh, that's nice. And in the book,
in the book,
so
yes,
people
definitely,
understand. Yeah.
right, exactly.
So I guess I'm curious. I want to know what made you inspired to write the book. Is it something you've always had in your mind, like a goal to write a book one day? Like when you actually decided the day, hey, I'm going to start now.
Right.
Take me through that process.
Well, my whole life I've enjoyed the arts. I liked,
I could see that.
singing. I liked acting. I liked coloring. Art in elementary and middle school.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the band. I took.
Were you?
Trumpet. I played trumpet.
Do you have a picture of you in like the band outfit?
No.
Okay.
Or I don't know. Yeah. So I think they have one side of your brain is creative. I do have a creative side, and writing was something I like to do. I've done a small book on poetry. I write poetry as well,
That's right.
And that's one of my next books, a collection of my poetry, as well as a sequel to Passion in Paradise, which I've already started.
Oh wow,
So
nice.
so I just enjoy writing in general. And once I retired, I made the decision recently that I'm going to devote a lot of my time now to helping care for my parents,
Oh,
because my dad is 88 years old. He'll be 89 this year, and my mom is 87. She'll be 88. So they don't drive. I do most of the shopping now. I take them to their appointments,
hmm.
and thankfully, because of my retirement from state and county government, I worked for like 27 years. So yeah, I am getting my pension now. So
Nice.
so that allows me not to work, and the writing now is an opportunity for me to take my knowledge and skills and see if I can maybe start a second career.
Hmm.
Plus, again, I'm looking at ways of still helping Hawaii,
Hmm.
because I could see this as I could start a screenplay on this, as someone would say, yeah, I think we'd be interested, write something and see.
Hmm.
One of my good friends, and you know him, former Representative John Karamatsu, right? He writes screenplays, and we've talked about writing and how we could uh, do things post legislature. So this is that opportunity now to stay at home more and take care of my folks and do something that's worthy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
because
awesome.
yeah,
And it's like you're taking care of your passion and your parents, which I think is super important. Because I come from, of course, the mainland, East Coast, uh, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, city of champions. If you watch football, the Steelers. But anyway, uh, for us, it seems like when our parents get old, we just throw them in the old folks' home. We're like, we don't want to deal with that. But I've always admired um, friends that I made, like here in Hawaii, or even when I used to live in Brazil. They like move their parents in with them, or they move in with their
yeah,
parents and take care of their parents. There's no sending them to the home and things like that.
right. In the Filipino culture, that's well, and many cultures as
Mhm.
well, and in Asia, but definitely, I'm Filipino, and that's part of it. That multi generational living is something that's
Yeah.
not unusual, and actually here in Hawaii, that's going to be the norm in the future, in my opinion. I mean, there's already a lot of multi generational people living in Hawaii,
Mhm.
homes, households, and it's going to continue just because of the high cost of living, and uh, you're going to see affordable homes built and affordable projects built, but uh, it's not going to be enough right now.
No.
And rail is part of the solution because of the TOD, transit oriented development, with high density units around the stations.
Mhm.
But look at the problems we're having just finishing rail. And I believe we're going to finish it. And I believe it's going to be damn expensive.
Mhm.
But James, and there's a lot of people today very critical of rail, and they should be. But in 20 years, in 30, in 10 years, in 20 years, in 50 years, in 100 years, that rail is going to be an important part of our transportation infrastructure, because in every huge economy, and especially a big city like ours, you have to have a good transportation and road infrastructure. If you don't, you will cripple your economy, and
Yeah.
and it won't be for goods and services, but our rail will be for the workers
Yeah.
that are living and working along the rail line, and I even see it being a destination for tourists. They'll spend the whole day, from
Riding
West
around.
Oahu to to downtown. So
I would take advantage of it, even though I have like a motorcycle and a car. If I could just take the rail to like Kapolei and cruise out there for the afternoon, I would do that.
right.
Instead of having to drive, sit in the
Oh, you will
traffic.
see a lot of that, and I believe you can take a bicycle on the rail,
Oh yeah,
so you could you know go further out, right?
yeah, and ride,
Right,
which would be
exactly.
nice. Ride around the west side over there. It's
It's very
beautiful over
flat.
there.
It's a
Yeah,
good place because it's very flat.
and when it's interesting because we'll talk about the housing for a second. The If you look at the Aloha Stadium redevelopment plan, I don't know. Did you see the 53 towers? What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Well, I'm good friends with Senator Chang,
Yeah, I like
and
Stanley.
he was looking at the Singapore model on how they built homes. Many high rises, tightly packed. But I agree with you that that rendering that was in the newspaper
That's
was
terrible.
very unattractive
Yeah.
and unappealing. But the three governors, Governor Cayetano, Governor Abercrombie, and Governor Waihee, were right when they're saying that we should make sure that there's a large allotment of affordable housing at that Aloha Stadium place.
Mhm.
Maybe not the amount that we saw in the
Yeah,
newspaper,
that's
but it is an opportunity. Um, but people need to realize that to build all of these things that are being suggested is going to take decades,
oh yeah.
decades.
Yeah.
And that's why this problem is not going to get solved overnight if we can solve it. I don't even know if it's solvable. Hawaii will be known as an expensive place. And that's just the way it is. I'd like to see someone, and there's all these billionaires that are moving here, right?
Yeah.
Pierre Omidyar, with the owner of Civil Beat, the Ellison guy from Lanai, Oprah, the Zuckerbergs, and
Crazy.
who knows other. I met a Chinese billionaire a couple years ago. I'm near Ala Moana. Um, it would be great if there was an initiative where we take all these billionaires and we take our isolated islands, because we are the largest population and the most isolated of this size. So we're a microcosm of the world, but wouldn't it be neat if we could come up with a model for the world, for humanity, where everyone contributes? You contribute whether it's $1 a year or $1 million a year, but everyone contributes, and we support capitalism, but we want to use those revenues and profits from capitalism and from business to help to make certain that no one in Hawaii is homeless,
Hmm.
no one in Hawaii is hungry, and no one in Hawaii lacks health care. Those three basic things. If we could develop a model for the world, that would be great to do. And we'll see. I'm concerned about the future of Hawaii for the working class, for the poor, for the low income.
Yeah.
Um, like I said, the status quo, what you're seeing now, folks, it's going to be like this for a very long time, because I don't see any plan. I don't see any politician. Now, recently in the news, the House of Representatives came up with a $600 million idea for Hawaiian homelands. But, you know, we could spend $500 million of that just on infrastructure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Infrastructure without one house being built, just on infrastructure. But then there's going to be the problem, the other problem. So that's and that one wasn't even is not likely to pass with that sum of money. I'd be very surprised. But
Mhm.
um, there's a governor's race, and there hasn't been a whole lot of talk yet on housing and the cost of living, and that's something that the voters should be thinking about
Mhm.
and asking questions about. Another area that they should be pushing is, and this is related to my novel, but home-based industries. I wrote this book at home.
Yeah. No, I
People
agree.
can cook at home. You could brew beer at home.
Hmm.
You could plant things at home, and if you can um, provide an environment where there's accountability and responsibility and oversight on home-based industries, that could be a way for people to stay home, stay off our roads, work from home, and
But you know how government works, right?
well, that's why we need.
They will tax, and there'll be so many regulations, and basically they'll just make it so the average person can't afford to work from home. So
Well, but that's what I'm saying. We need a change in attitude. We need some
yeah, no, I agree
visionary
with that,
thinking.
because it's kind of like, while they're talking about raising the minimum wage,
Mhm.
they're also raising other taxes, other fees, and then they're expanding their budget. So it's like, wait, you're going to pay me $18 an hour minimum wage, but you've just raised taxes 75%, and now you've expanded the government more, which is going to cost me more. So
Well, and a lot of it though, James, is that as one who's was a lawmaker,
yeah,
yes, we want to watch how much taxes we collect, but at the same time, our electorate, our residents, they have a lot of demands,
mhm,
huge demands. And we have here in Hawaii things that other governments on the mainland don't have and pay for. For example, I'll name you three. The first one is education. On the mainland, as you know, that a lot of counties and towns pay for their education,
yeah,
right? They levy. I remember, see, my dad was in the Navy, and I lived in a Navy town, and I lived in Washington State. My junior year, the voters voted down a proposition, or maybe my sophomore year, on raising taxes for schools. My junior year, we had to cut out sports. We cut out sports in my high school, my junior year. And then we brought them back my senior year. And we had a great senior year. But um, Hawaii pays, the state government pays for education, which is in the hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay. And then we pay for jails and prisons. In
mhm,
the mainland, you might have a state prison, but you have county jails all around in the mainland. But it's a state function here.
hmm,
And then you also have the healthcare system. Okay. Again, on the mainland, you have um, the the counties paying for a lot of healthcare, federal, but not the state. But here, we have our the state system, the state healthcare system on all the islands, so that every citizen has the same level of care and services.
mhm.
Because Oahu does subsidize a lot of the living on the neighbor islands, and let me repeat that so people understand. Oahu subsidized a lot of the neighbor island living. And so that's why we have the state system, and that's why we have the tax system and structure we have. And although many people complain about it, Hawaii is still one of the best places to live in the world.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't
But
argue that.
but primarily if you have wealth and money.
Mhm.
But you could still live here, and many people do, like I said, in multi-generational homes,
Yeah,
smaller homes. Um, but we don't have, like, for example, on Oahu, we don't have really low rent districts
yeah,
anymore.
yep.
We used to, but those days are gone. And you don't have places for the poor or low income, and rooms are being rented for 500, 600, 800, $1,000.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. So hopefully there'll be political leaders with a vision. There can be people who can come up with ideas, that can work or at least be considered. And in my book, when I bring up issues, again, it's just that's what I do as a person, because I was a lawmaker, throw out ideas,
Mhm.
and it's to remind people that these are issues that we still have to take care of. So I have two families, by the way. It's the Wong family and Henderson family, and they came in the 1800s. So there are some flashbacks to the 1800s where the Wong family and the Henderson family interacted.
Oh,
And that
nice.
interaction continued throughout the years to modern day Hawaii, where Jared Wong runs against Thomas Henderson for the office of governor. And then it goes from there.
That's awesome. And your book, how long did it take you to write?
On and off, maybe a year.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
it didn't
that's
take too long. Yes. As a matter of fact, I'm hoping that the sequel will be completed. The manuscript will be completed by summer.
oh wow,
Yeah,
that's
and then
fascinating.
we'll try to get it out by fall. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because I was thinking like, oh, maybe like at least 2 years, but
Well, like I said, it was on and off, on and off, and just because I was doing other things. So now that with my retirement, it gave me an opportunity to finish it up, and see where it goes and where it takes me.
do you miss legislating? You miss like working at the
Yeah,
Capitol?
I miss it. But I'm happy with the way things are now. As I said, especially at my point in life, I'll be 62 years old this year,
You
and
don't look like it, so
thank you. It's the genes, but
baby face.
but I am spending more time with my parents, and that's really it's priceless. Yeah, things I've done with them that I realized, geez, if I was working or I wasn't at home, I wouldn't experience this or see this or
Yeah,
hear this, and it also gave me a perspective on aging and how do we deal with an aging. And my family, we're fortunate that we're all together.
mm.
But I think about elderly people who are living at home alone or who are struggling to make ends meet, and again, it's you know well, I hope that we could somehow create a society here where we can take care of each other, and for people who are drug addicts, they need a rehabilitation and treatment,
Mm.
or people that need jobs, we give them the training and or the retraining. But there's no reason why, if you want a job, you don't have a job.
Hmm.
We do have a labor shortage in many industries, in law enforcement, in teaching, in healthcare, in education, in the retail industry. I mean, even the minimum wage. You know, people don't want to go to work, so there's a shortage of minimum wage workers, and they're trying to raise the minimum wage to get people back to work, and it's a catch-22. So, yeah,
It's
we're going through an interesting time right now, James, as you know.
it'll be interesting to see how it all like levels out in the next, I guess. Oh my God, like decade. I don't even know.
Yeah, I think the next 5 years to 10 years will be, that I like to think that, is there an opportunity for a shift
Hmm.
in thinking or behaving, and where will that be? With President Biden, he has some challenges, primarily because of COVID, and people need to remember that um, it's really not a matter of who's in office when it's dealing with COVID, because COVID is in control.
Yeah.
But the key thing is to acknowledge that the COVID is in control and the COVID is here, because the former president was hesitant, and it took him a while to
Hmm.
to get on the train, and we know that, and that's a whole new segment right there. We won't go, but the president, COVID is it's this has happened before with the Spanish flu 100 years ago. It's going to happen again.
Mm.
There are diseases out there that we don't know of. There are viruses out there that are lurking in forests and within animals, and this is just that how it is. And hopefully we can get control of this the way we got control of measles, smallpox,
Yeah.
polio, all these other. I mean, this is the cycle of
I have faith. A
yeah.
lot of people that are afraid of like the vaccine, or they say, "Oh, how do we make the vaccine so fast?" I remember like early on when COVID, when we were doing the lockdowns, they were talking about IBM switched their supercomputer from mapping the galaxy or the universe to analyzing the COVID. Like that's the technology we have today is far superior to what we ever had in the past. So, uh, in my opinion, the vaccine is fine, but that is one of the keys to the COVID, right?
Mhm.
Um, I don't believe in mandating it, but I do think that if you want to continue society as normal, it's something that we have to take care of today.
Yes. Well, one clear fact is the majority of the people who are dying are anti-vaxxers.
Mm.
They don't have the vaccination, and the vaccination will not stop you from getting the illness, but it'll likely save your life and possibly keep you out of the hospital. That's plain and simple.
Yeah.
And if people don't believe that,
See, I think
then I'm sorry.
I think one of the
It's just sad.
issues, yeah, I think one of the issues is like a lot of people, especially Americans, right? We have that attitude of, you're not going to tell me I have to do something. even if they want to do it, if you told them, it's like a kid, right? They have to do it. They don't want to do
Right.
it, right? Even if they want to.
Right. And we've seen families of those individuals going on the news saying
Mhm.
he or she is now asking everybody to take the COVID
Yeah,
shot.
I know guys. They're older, and they were against the vaccine, and I didn't get it right away. I got it, probably in August, and then, but then they got COVID, and now they swear by the vaccine
Right.
because it's just like the flu shot. Like, I don't know. Maybe they need to rebrand it. I've always said, especially with the Democratic Party, they're terrible at branding things, and I think we had this discussion too at the Christmas party. But they're just so bad at branding. Like, don't like it doesn't have to be a booster shot. It could just be, you just call it it's a new year and a yearly COVID shot.
Yeah.
It's just like a yearly flu shot. You go in,
Right.
you get it. I think it just trying to rebrand it would be more productive than the current what you call it, the current marketing strategy they have now, which also goes into what I wanted to bring up about the Joe Rogan thing was. They don't like the people that he had on a show that were talking about the vaccines and alternative and things like that. But it turns out Pfizer is, owns part of these different companies that are invested in interests like CNN
Right.
and things like that. So him talking bad about it, they're kind of like, oh, we can't have this. That's squishing competition, which is, hey, whatever. But I think it just kind of circles back to like the marijuana issue, right? Like, we could have had it; it could have been legal. Now it's illegal because of
Right.
the paper and the other textiles and whatever.
And it's people are being cured or feeling better because of cannabis, and I mean that was one of the major travesties of that time, because it literally I mean, here's an example: hempcrete. Okay, we could build
Yeah.
houses out of hemp. We could build houses out of hemp, and these houses would be termite proof
Yeah.
and fireproof. They're fireproof, hemp and lime. And imagine all of the trees that would be saved.
Mm-hmm.
And it you could get more acreage on of material on an acre of hemp than an acre of forest, and it grows hemp within 4 months. Every 4 months you could harvest.
That's such a fast turnaround.
No,
See,
like I said, this is a wonder plant that sadly these white industrious millionaires work together with government
mm-hmm.
to kill the hemp and cannabis industry.
But isn't it interesting though? Like, for my thing, Democrats aren't necessarily in charge, right? Checks and balances, 50-50.
Well,
Senate,
yeah, the Senate is 50-50.
But it's like, it doesn't seem like since Biden won that there's any talk of reverting the marijuana laws or changing its designation from, was it a Scheduled 1 or something like that?
Yeah, many Democrats and people I know are hoping the president will pay more attention to this, but he hasn't been. And
there's a lot of things going on that are a little bit more important. I mean,
well, in our United States Congress, you should be able to, number one, multitask.
yes.
And number two, that's why you have multiple members of Congress and multiple agencies. You don't just work on one thing. You work on multiple things. And this, though, is important because it's agriculture,
mm-hmm.
it's jobs, it's economic development. So the current administration and Congress should be looking at this because it can really change society and change the world. It can.
Didn't we pass
We have
commercial hemp?
Well, the federal government, I think in 2017 or 18, finally passed legislation for hemp
mm-hmm.
to be grown. And what happened was um, so many people and businesses gotten to the hemp industry, especially on the mainland, but the market got saturated.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
If I'm right, and don't quote me on this, but for example, at one point where um, the price of a hemp unit was $1,000, like it dropped down to $200 or $100.
Oh,
You
wow.
see,
Yeah.
I mean,
That's-
that much saturation within the industry, and those numbers aren't accurate, but it was something of that nature, that because so many people wanted to get involved in it,
Mhm.
and because it's still in its infancy, so to speak, the regulations, rules are changing and being amended, but the future looks good. The possibilities are good, and Hawaii can get on that one day if legally um, cannabis is sold for adult use worldwide.
Mhm.
We have the potential of having a brand and strain that is nationally recognized already just
Yeah, yeah.
by two words,
Have our
right?
own strain.
Maui Wowie,
Maui
right?
wow.
Okay, yeah. So there are possibilities, but we'll see how our grandfather's generation of politicians,
Mhm.
they are dying out. They're in the leadership at Congress right now. Our president, he's that World War II generation,
Mhm.
and the change is coming with the millennials and the X Gen and the tail end of I'm a tail end myself of the baby boomers.
Mhm.
It's to see what lies in store for us, and technology, and what we're doing with this podcast is
Yeah.
going to be a big part of you know what type of society we live in, and what's going to be available, and how instantaneous things will be or not be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always just thought the marijuana thing was always so interesting to me. Like, because in Hawaii, like you were saying, like I felt like we still kind of do, but again, we're like hopping on the back of the train. Like we could have been like kind of near the forefront of
For
for legalized
cannabis,
marijuana.
yes, we were in 2000, we were the first state legislature to pass medical cannabis.
Hmm.
Now, prior to that, I think California did in 96, 98, somewhere around there. But we were one of the leaders in medical cannabis. But then it took till 2015, 16 to pass. Well,
Yeah.
wait, I take that back. Okay. In 2000, we passed medical cannabis, but it was homegrown medical cannabis. Let
Mm.
me clarify that. We passed it in 2000, but it took us till 2015, 16 to approve the dispensaries. So we fell behind that, where we were once the leader. And then all these other states did medical cannabis. And then the West Coast states, um, California, Oregon, Washington, Alaska, they started passing the legalized cannabis.
Hmm.
And now, like I said, 18 states. And it's going, it'll probably be half the country, within 5 years or less.
Do you think Hawaii will lean that way this session? I
You
mean,
know,
we need the money.
yes, and the states that have they've raised hundreds of $1 million on the mainland uh,
Hmm.
on tax revenues from cannabis.
Yeah.
So
Have you been to Vegas? They
not
are.
recently.
There's so much development going on. They have so much money from marijuana,
Yeah.
and
But
maybe in the end, though, Hawaii, because we get a lot more of the Asian tourists, maybe the industry overall wouldn't be. What do you think? Do you think the industry would be as big as somewhere like Vegas or
you're talking about
California?
cannabis?
Yeah, let's say legal marijuana, like smoking, eating.
Well, I don't think it'll be as big as the mainland, just
Mhm.
because we're a smaller population.
Yeah, true, true.
And the tourists won't be coming here because of cannabis.
Mhm.
They're coming here because of the sun and the fun.
Yeah,
I mean, for some,
and the
they
beach.
may. Just like there's medical cannabis, medical tourism, sports tourism,
Hmm.
health tourism, arts tourism. There can be cannabis tourism, but once it's legalized everywhere,
Hmm.
everyone will be competing, and that's where then it would be up to us if we can try to develop strains that are very popular.
Yeah, no matter what.
and even be a leader though in medical cannabis,
Mhm.
because if we could be a leader in medical cannabis, there's something you'll have a global market for
Yeah,
sure.
and the whole industry would create more jobs. I think better paying jobs. Um, and then even like with the universities to have the freedom to do their more research and things like that. Now, I'm curious, like in your book, the topic of medical, is it medical marijuana or legalized just marijuana in general in the book?
It's about legalizing. Yeah,
Legalizing.
legalizing. The decriminalization is already has already passed. So now the discussion primarily is legalization.
I was going to ask how it turns out, but that would be giving it away. So I stopped myself. Well, cool, man. I wanted to ask about the casino. What your thoughts on that were,
That's
or legalized gambling?
I support a lottery. I
Yeah,
think a lottery. The casino, I see both arguments.
yeah,
Okay, but as one who has gone to a casino, gambled
yeah.
myself, I remember growing up and going to the bingo halls with my mother.
Mhm.
Okay, I support gambling in general, but not Las Vegas type.
Mm.
We can probably accommodate one casino on Oahu that I think could be a revenue generator, but I don't think the votes are at the state
You don't think?
capital
Because I mean, even
or
like
or even the governor's race.
even if we could, like you were saying, like a lottery or like yeah, like fundraising style, like raising money through gambling games would
Right.
be, you know,
Like I said, I understand both sides.
yeah.
I'm not a strong advocate for gambling, but I'd love to see mahjong halls.
I don't know how to
Do you
play
play
that.
mahjong by
No,
any
I don't
chance?
know how to play
Your fiance probably does. I don't know,
that.
but my parents play mahjong. My mom has a regular mahjong group, but I think mahjong could be a winner.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, gambling has had a very difficult time because of the negative side of gambling, and I understand that.
Mm.
But if we were to reject everything because it had a negative side, we'd have to ban marriage.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
joke.
Uh-oh.
No,
Don't cancel yourself. No, I'm kidding.
no, but no, society is what we want it to be. And right now, although people from Hawaii love to go to Vegas,
Mhm.
but they're not. There's not a big demand pushing saying legalize. There just isn't. I think that's just because residents have other worries and issues to deal with.
Yeah.
And I guess if they want to gamble, they go to Vegas or they have a card game in their home, right?
Yeah. And that's
Um, and it is legal, I believe, to gamble with money in the confines of your home if it's just a friendly
mhm.
wager and game, with two or three of your friends. I believe that is legal.
Mm.
Yeah. But it's when you have, the house winning and you have organized crime doing shit like that, that's
The game rooms.
the game room,
A bunch of
that's
game rooms in
that's the illegal
Kauai.
stuff, right? Right.
Yeah. I think it also might end up just being something where it's like kind of like the beach, right? If you live near it, you don't necessarily go to it all the time because it's there, right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
so casino could be the same. I think people, I support legalized gambling and all that, but I think that people go to Vegas for the experience, not necessarily just to gamble, but for the whole experience and the traveling and getting off the island for a while.
Uh, I'd like to see us maybe start with offshore gambling.
Yeah.
Offshore gambling, so nothing on the land. It would have to be on a boat, on a
Mhm.
ship, and you see what that way you can charge people to go in,
Mhm.
right? It's not like in Vegas, you just walk into anywhere, but you pay people to get, and they charge people to gamble, and you control it, and if it's a ship, for example,
Mhm.
it could go out for 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours. Then you come back and you kick everybody off. You see
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Versus a 24-hour casino.
People are just
So, I mean, to me, there are ways to do it, but again, we've never had the votes and the big push. Bills have been introduced over the years that
Yeah.
have never had hearings. Never.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if this one has a hearing. I haven't followed up on it. The one for legalized.
You know, well, it did last year, right?
Did it?
The one that was supported by the Department of Hawaiian Homelands.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, didn't that one have a hearing?
I'm not sure. I forget.
Yeah, maybe we could check, but
Hmm.
but that got a lot of news and play, and I could see that getting a hearing, and then just probably they deferred it.
Yeah, and I think the other side too is like the lobbyists.
But let's see, because it has to start somewhere, and like with cannabis, last year I think the Senate finally passed out a bill for legalizing cannabis, but the House of Representatives held it and didn't do anything with it. So we'll see.
Saving it for campaign season. That's why.
Well, during campaign season is when they usually avoid those controversial stuff.
That's true.
True. I'd be surprised if anything on cannabis for legalization passed, although I think they should. As a matter of fact, I recently sent an article to all the legislators that showed about the billions of dollars that the industry was generating and the taxes that it was generating for government services.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was talking about before when it comes to like they want to raise minimum wage, but they also want to raise taxes. I think what you were saying too tied into your home, working from home, the home industry.
Yeah.
Like in my building, the state building that I work out of is pretty big for the amount of people that it has, and we're running the air conditioning, the lights, and then the state overall has something like a $13 billion with a B backlog and maintenance. So like we can cut costs of government by, consolidating all the resources into, smaller entities, and then use that revenue for other things like affordable housing or whatever. And then everything extra that would come from like a lottery or legalized marijuana, that extra tax money could go into programs that benefit people, hopefully. But I guess before I let you go, if there's anything else you wanted to bring up, or plug your book another time. Oh yeah, you want it?
Let's see. Let's see. I don't know if the viewers can see that.
Let's get your elevator pitch. Let's see your sales pitch.
Well,
yeah, they can see.
This is my debut novel, Passion in Paradise. It's about two prominent families in Hawaii who interact in politics, business, love, and drama. And their friends and supporters, and the private and personal lives of their friends and supporters are included in the storylines. And it is fiction, so it's not based on any true characters or real characters or events. If there are some similarities, that's coincidental.
Mm.
And it's available on many book purchasing platforms. Amazon.com, Barnes and Noble. Again, I mentioned earlier my book signing is February 19th, the third Saturday, 2 to 5 at Mark's Garage. And first Friday, March 4th at the Downtown Arts Center, 5:30 to 8 o'clock. And I'm trying to get my book in some stores locally. I'm trying Barnes and Noble and Target and Walmart.
Oh, nice.
But, I'm learning a lot about the book industry. It's interesting. A lot I don't know. And sometimes it can be slow and inefficient. But again, books, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry worldwide. And again, if we could turn it into a television series, I'd like to help Hawaii's economy. And arts and culture are a great way to build, I believe, our post-COVID economy.
And I agree. Well, I appreciate your time. I'll be there on the 19th for your book signing. Now, if there's too many people or you run out of books, what are you gonna add another day?
Yeah, if I run out of books, that's great. But some people have already purchased books. I've already signed a few, and since they can get it online, and the Kindle version is obviously much cheaper than the paperback or the hardcover. So,
I guess. But when they order from Amazon, is that coming do you ship it to them, or does that come from the
No, that goes,
publisher?
yeah, from the printer distributor directly to the person who bought it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. I was confused
yeah.
about
There's
that.
many and the author has control over none of it. So that's why.
That's why you got to do like the podcast
Yeah.
like this, where you have full control.
Well, either what I found is you either market your book yourself or you pay someone to do it.
Hmm.
And I think most authors, don't have the money to pay someone. So that's where social media and this is very useful and helpful.
Hmm.
And again, it's a new it's a new era in terms of part time income and career choices.
Yeah,
Right. And I'm fortunate that I can do this, without stressing on how many books have I sold.
yeah,
Um, this is really, I guess, when they say if you love something, and I really enjoy creating.
yeah. I bet.
Yeah, and I have a couple other projects in mind. A play,
Hmm.
possibly a musical.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Are you gonna be in it? You got to put yourself as like some like a police chief
Well,
or.
I could always be that. Uh, what would what where you have I'm senior moment. Where Alfred Hitchcock was in the um he'd be on the side and you'd see his face.
Yeah, yeah,
What
yeah.
do you call that again?
Oh, like a silhouette or
No,
um.
you know what I mean, right? Where you show the writer or the character, but he doesn't have any words.
Yeah, it's almost like a cameo. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
what
cameo. Okay,
that's what I
cool.
mean.
I was thinking silhouette. I was thinking about the pic, the
Right, right.
black thing. Yeah,
But a cameo appearance or something.
I like that.
But yeah, and James, I want to thank you for having me over and doing this, and hopefully a few people will listen to it. And if anyone's interested, I can be contacted at william.espero@gmail.com.
Hmm.
Yeah, william.espero@gmail.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I guess your son is a Marine, right?
My son, he just he was on the East Coast in Europe for like 10, 11 years,
Hmm.
and he just got stationed at K-Bay.
Oh,
So
wow,
yeah,
nice,
he's a major now at K-Bay.
awesome.
Yes,
Well, I just give him a shout out,
thank you. Yeah,
fellow veterans there.
for his
So
service, and let's hope that Putin does the right thing and takes a step back. I think he might be, and that all the noise that's happening around Ukraine will subside.
yeah, I hope so too, because we that's a whole other topic, but we just don't need
Yes, you're right.
more conflict
Right,
in the world.
and
Yeah.
and Putin, he's going to look like a major pariah and a bad guy, and I think he gets it or he knows it,
Mhm.
or he might have miscalculated. I'm hoping. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Or-
Because I mean, he can't beat the United States and NATO. He just can't.
Nah.
No.
And we have troops so close
Yeah.
to the border they're training always, in Poland
Well,
and whatnot.
yeah,
so,
we do not. But let's make it clear: we do not want to be in a shooting war.
yeah.
We don't. And I think President Biden, with what they're talking about, the economic sanctions, I think that's the way to do it. Of course,
Mhm.
you take away anybody's wallet,
Mhm.
or you limit how many times you can go to the bank
Yeah.
and make a withdrawal, or whatever the case may be.
That hurts.
I think that's the right tactic, and that's maybe how warfare should be from now on.
Yeah.
Let's not kill each other, folks. Let's just
Yeah.
threaten to cut off your pipeline or block your the ships from coming in, or whatever the case may be.
Or we send the leaders to fight each other instead of the millions of other people who somehow always end up
We'd
fighting
have
these
to-
wars for them. Yeah.
That's right. Legalize cannabis and junk in a po, and that's how we solve world problems.
I like it. Well, I thank you very much. We'll cut it off here. And good luck with your book signing and your sales. I hope it's on the New York Times bestseller list. All right.